For centuries, human history has been marked by a simple system: B.C., before Christ, and A.D., Anno Domini, meaning in the year of our Lord. This method of recording time has been used across the world, defining everything from historical records to everyday calendars. But in recent decades, a new set of terms emerged: BCE, before Common Era, and CE, Common Era. Schools, universities, and even governments have replaced the traditional Christian-based dating system with this secular alternative. So why the change? Was this an innocent academic shift, or was there something more behind it? Stay with us as we uncover the real story behind the calendar change, who pushed for it, why it happened, and what it means for us today. The story of our calendar begins in the 6th century. Before this, the Roman Empire used a dating system based on the reign of emperors or the founding of Rome. But in the year 525 AD, a Christian monk named Dionysius Exiguus introduced a new system centered on the birth of Jesus Christ. Dionysius wanted to eliminate the old Diocletian-era calendar, which honored a Roman emperor who had persecuted Christians. So, he calculated what he believed to be the birth year of Christ and made it the starting point of a new era. The years before Christ, those would simply be counted backward and labeled as before Christ, BC. This system gained widespread acceptance in the Christian world, and by the Middle Ages, it became the standard way of recording time in Europe. With the expansion of European influence, it became the dominant system worldwide. For over 1,000 years, the B.C.A.D. system remained unchallenged. But as societies became more secular, pressure grew to adopt a neutral way of marking time. The first recorded use of Common Era, CE, appeared in the 17th century, mainly among Jewish scholars who wished to avoid explicitly Christian terminology. However, the real shift happened in the 20th century, when secular historians and academic institutions began promoting BCE-CE in schools and scholarly work. By the late 20th and early 21st centuries, major organizations, including universities, publishers, and even governments, began adopting the BCE-CE system. The argument? That it was more inclusive and neutral for a global audience. But let's be honest, does changing before Christ to before Common Era really change anything? The system is still based on the birth of Jesus. The shift from before Christ and Anno Domini to before Common Era and Common Era wasn't just an accident. It was driven by several key forces. 1. Academia and secularism. As universities moved away from religious influence, there was a strong push to adopt terminology that didn't reference Christianity. 2. Political correctness. Some argued that using before Christ was offensive to non-Christians and needed to be replaced. 3. Atheist and secularist movements. Organizations promoting secular humanism actively encouraged the use of BCE and CE to remove religious elements from historical study. Ironically, even though they claim BCE and CE is neutral, it still revolves around Christ's birth. The only difference, his name is no longer mentioned. So what has been the impact of this change? Many schools now exclusively use BCE and CE, with textbooks and history courses phasing out before Christ and Anno Domini entirely. But not everyone is accepting it. Christian scholars, historians, and even some secular researchers argue that this is a deliberate attempt to erase Christian influence from history. And the question remains, if history is what it is, why change the language around it? Is this about inclusivity, or is it about removing Christ from our historical narrative? The truth is, no matter what we call it, the world's calendar still revolves around one event: the birth of Jesus Christ. While the names may change, history does not. The push to replace before Christ and Anno Domini with BCE and CE is part of a larger trend, one that seeks to rewrite history to fit modern secular ideologies. But the question is, should we accept this change without question? Or should we stand for historical truth and recognize that our calendar, like much of history, is deeply rooted in Christianity? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Should we fight to keep before Christ and Anno Domini? Or is BCE and CE just harmless terminology? Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video so more people can know the real story behind the calendar controversy.